Hello, welcome back to the Talking City podcast. We've just seen Manchester City exit the Champions League on penalties. Heartbreaking fashion, you would have to say. It was an enthralling game, not quite the 3-3 of the Bernabeu, but it was one after extra time onto penalties, and City had given everything and then just came up short. My name's Joe Bray, joined by Tyrone, Marshall, Ty. What do you make of it?
I mean, it was just a thrillingly tense, edgy, horrible Champions League game, really, wasn't it? It was, I just read a piece, and it was it's what Champions League games are supposed to feel like, I think, in the knockout rounds. And in a way, City didn't really get that last year. They were so good here. They eviscerated Real, Bayern, RB Leipzig. It was tense in Istanbul last year when they were in the final. But in knockout games here last year, they didn't really have that. And I think this has been the tensest, tautest, most edgy Champions League night here probably since Tottenham, and it's ended in similar fashion. But I thought City were excellent for large periods. I've got to say, I think the best team has gone out. 67% possession, 33 shots to 8, 18 corners to 1. It's absolutely, it's just kind of what Real Madrid do, I guess. That City, the second half especially, I thought City were phenomenal. Not necessarily in terms of technicality like they were last year. They blew Real away with their brilliance last year. The second half this time, it was pure intensity, pure physicality. It was suffocating, and those Real players just couldn't breathe. But unless they are totally out of oxygen, they are alive. And City didn't starve them of oxygen enough. They had a breath left. They got themselves to penalties, and they do what Real Madrid do, and they survived and they went through. And I don't think the best team over the two legs has won. I don't think the team who's even close to the best over two legs has won. But it's what Real do. But I think long term you'd have to look at it and say it still felt like a great Etihad night. I thought the atmosphere was phenomenal all night. It was, you look back and Valverde said last year in October, I think, that this was the most difficult stadium he'd ever played in. And you can see why he means that in the second half. Team of Real Madrid's quality couldn't breathe in the second half. And unfortunately, the only mistake City made was that they didn't kill them. And when you don't kill Real Madrid, you give them a chance. You might be able to hear the Real Madrid fans are still in the stadium, and Jude Bellingham's just gone back out. I think he's maybe doing some TV, and he's been winding the City fans up all night and celebrating with the Real Madrid fans, and he's just punched the air against the Real fans and got a big roar. It's certainly Bellingham's night, but I think it's unfortunate and unlucky for City the way they've gone out, because I don't know about you, but I just thought they were comfortably the better team across the 180 minutes, and certainly tonight.
I think, they were the better team, but it felt, for me in the first half, I don't think City was City. I think they were thinking a little bit too much. I don't want to say the word overthinking, but Real got the goal, sort of caught City on the counter-attack. I said to you and Simon that they were sort of playing a really high-low block, in that they were letting City have the ball when it was the defenders, and as soon as City moved the ball forward into the midfield, then it was the high press, and they were trying to force the midfield. And I think that threw City off a little bit, and it took them a while. They conceded. It took them a while to actually work out how to play through that, and then after that they slowly build up the chances. But even still, you're thinking, just calm down, just chill out a little bit, and you are creating the chances when you're not playing great. And imagine if you play great, you're going to do it. And the second half was a lot more like City, and you always felt they were in it, even when the clock was ticking away. They get the goal. We were saying Grealish was one of the best players.
Yeah.
He was definitely City's best attacking outlet. And a lot of eyebrows were raised when he went off. But he was on a booking, and then Jeremy Doku comes on and takes it to a new level. I think that was a really good change from Guardiola, in that he sort of noticed what was happening on that side. And Doku's got better and better over the last few weeks. And he creates the goal. De Bruyne, who I didn't think had a great game. He knows where to be in the area. He pops up and gets the goal. Etihad erupts. You felt it was just waiting to have that moment, weren't you? And it was, the fans were great. They were getting behind the side when they needed it, when there was when you could see that the top players were looking around thinking, how do we get through this low block? Because that block did get lower and lower and lower from Real Madrid, and it just, they could have got another goal, and I think if they got one more, they would have gone on and got a couple more, wouldn't they? And then extra time comes. I think that helps Madrid, because they were hanging on. They were really, really hanging on. Extra time gives them a chance to just reset a bit, even when Rodrigo and Vinicius go off. They have a bit of a plan. They have a couple of chances on the break. City sort of again not run out of ideas, but I think they were getting quite tired, and it was. I think they needed to win that game in the 90 minutes. It goes to penalties, and they win the toss. They do everything right. Ederson steps up and scores.
Lovely penalty,
I mean, that was a penalty that would have sent City out, and I was thinking, oh no, after all the talk of Ederson taking a penalty, please do not sky this. But I mean, it was a good penalty, but it was a pretty poor one from Bernardo, wasn't it? It wasn't a Panenka, it was just a bad chip.
Yeah.
Straight at Lunin, and Kovacic, it's one of them. I didn't hear the commentators, but I would imagine they said that's too close to the goalkeeper. And if you're going to go that way, put it in the corner. And Madrid missed one, but made no mistakes. And it's just a frustrating night because they didn't play badly.
No.
It's other Champions League nights, they've let it go and they played badly. And they were, as you say, they were the better team. I don't know how you would start to analyse that as Guardiola, because all the players and Guardiola were sort of a bit shell-shocked at the end. The fans were clapping them off because they gave everything, and I don't know, how would you think that they go through this now? They've got Chelsea in 3 days' time. They've got to go down to London. Not ideal at all after going all that way and not winning.
No, I mean, I think you'd possibly make Chelsea favourites now, to be honest, at the weekend. With, we've written this week quite a bit about how this is always the toughest week of City's season, and they always seem to cop for this Wednesday night Champions League, Saturday FA Cup draw, and it's two season-defining games in 72 hours. It's just so difficult. And I was doing some research yesterday, and Guardiola made 8 changes against Chelsea 3 years ago, 7 against Liverpool 2 years ago, 6 against Sheffield United last season. And although he made changes on Saturday against Luton, you feel he's got to do it again, because that was just so draining tonight. And you talk about Bernardo's penalty. I mean, it was the penalty of an absolutely exhausted footballer, wasn't it?
Well, yeah.
The person next to me said, was that a Panenka? And I was like, I don't think it was. But it was just sort of like stroked down the middle, and it had no power on it, and it looked terrible in the end. But like I say, it was as good as that second half from City was, and not in the way that they were great last year against Real. Like I say, it was in a different way. They were just physically dominant. It was I've used the phrase suffocating a few times, but that's what it was in terms of the players and the fans. And the Etihad's got this reputation of being mocked within English football, and when you hear people like Fede Valverde say it's the hardest stadium he's played in, you'll have fans of other clubs going like, is that a joke? But it's not just the atmosphere, or necessarily the atmosphere that makes it. It's the way City play here. And we've just been debating, does this count as an unbeaten game or not? We've had this debate before with City and penalties. If it is unbeaten, they've equalled the club record from 1921 for unbeaten games, but I don't think anyone wants to celebrate it tonight. But you can see why big clubs come here and get eaten alive, because they just get swamped. They can't live either with City's quality or their intensity and physicality, and that is what happened. But like you say, it felt like the game was there to be won in the 90 minutes. De Bruyne should probably have scored the winner from a Kanji top back, I think it was. I think that was their best chance to win the game. In extra time it became more even, and Real had chances again. Rudiger had a really good chance. They had a few moments on the break which they just didn't have at all in the second half. We were looking at that goal constantly in the second half. There was nothing from Real. But yeah, like I say, City's only mistake is they didn't kill them. We've just been saying, how does Guardiola analyse it? I mean, Simon's doing the Pep's press conference for us shortly, and you'll be able to read his quotes on the MEN website, but I'm going to have a guess that his analysis will basically be, that's Real Madrid. He's called them kings of the competition already during this tie, and I wouldn't be surprised if he says it again, because that is just what they do. Look at what they did to City and Chelsea and PSG 2 years ago. They were dead in all of those ties, and they won them all, and they got to the final, and they beat Liverpool. It's just what they do, and it's starting to feel like one of those years again where they're just going to win it when they're not the best team in Europe. City are the best team in Europe. The way they played tonight, I don't think you can dispute that. But they just didn't finish them off. And you mentioned a few performers there. I'd agree. I thought Grealish was really good. Is quietly having a really good second half of the season. I think he's got better and better. But you can see his battle with Carvajal was brilliant. They were both booked for fouling each other. It was a really good, intense physical battle. Doku did change the game. I thought De Bruyne was maybe a little lucky to stay on as he was against Arsenal, but you just can't take him off, and there he is for that moment. But I don't know, I didn't think he had a great game. There's a few people around us who said he kind of drove City forward in the second half. Maybe he did, but it feels to me at the moment like De Bruyne is doing it through a force of will.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's those moments of genius that came so easily, even 12 months ago. You know, he was, especially at the Etihad, at this time last year, he was the man, wasn't he, at the Etihad? He was the one killing Arsenal, killing Real Madrid. You know, he was phenomenal in these games. At the moment, it feels like that genius is still there. We saw it against Palace, but he's having to search for it. It's not coming naturally to him like it did. He's finding it harder to get those decisive moments, and they're becoming rarer, and it just feels like a force of will at the moment, like he's just trying and trying and trying to make something happen. And this, you know, without the goal, it was probably a 5 or 6 out of 10 performance. He gets the goal in the end. Unfortunately, it doesn't really count for anything, but I don't know, it didn't feel like it was him at his best, and kind of got, I won't say it's an issue brewing, but you come back to the Arsenal game when De Bruyne and Foden started together and neither played well, and it's kind of happened again tonight. And in the meantime, when one of the others played, they're the best player on the pitch, really. Yet together, it's just not really working at the moment since De Bruyne.
I think City looked better when Guardiola changed things in the second half, and Foden was quite isolated in the first half on the right. He moved it over, so it's Bernardo on the right. Bernardo plays a lot better. Foden and De Bruyne can combine in the middle. I agree with you that I don't think he's been playing that well.
No.
And even when at Crystal Palace he scores 2 goals and gets an assist, I was saying I don't think he's had a good game apart from that. But because he's winning those games himself, that's not the mark of a good player. And without City, without him, they would have gone out in 90 minutes here. So it's weighing that up.
It's that quote from Guardiola when De Bruyne and Haaland were both out, and kind of took us all by surprise. But he basically said those players don't help you play better; they help you win games. And I guess you see it tonight, really, with that kind of thing. That De Bruyne didn't make City play better tonight. He just came up with a big moment, but at the moment he isn't making City play better, I don't think.
But then he's taken off, and I'm thinking, you've got 10 minutes till penalties.
Is
it worth keeping him on just for that experience? But and you bring on Kovacic, who goes and misses. But it was interesting that he took Haaland off in the stroke of 90 minutes when extra time starts. And again, Haaland didn't have a great game, but do you want him there just to get on the end of a potential chance? Alvarez did okay, scored a penalty, but it's one of them. I think Guardiola stayed calm throughout. There was a lot of nerves. I think the players were nervous, the fans were nervous. He stayed calm and made those big decisions and took off some big players. To take off Grealish, Haaland and De Bruyne in a game that you're going to win, I don't think it made City play worse.
No.
But then, because they've lost, you're going to look at it and say, well, should you have done that? It's but it will always come back to the fact that it's Real Madrid, and they defended very, very well. Their game plan was to stop City playing, and they stopped the City playing in their own half. In the first half, in the second half, it was more of a traditional low block, but their game plan worked to perfection. They celebrated like they knew they had won a massive game.
Huge.
We talk about, and we've talked a lot this season about decisive weeks. They can't win the treble now. I think Guardiola, he won't be relieved. Obviously, he will want to win it, but he will be happy to not have to answer those questions after tonight, really, in terms of are you going to win it. He always says he'll only think about it after you've won 2 of the 3 and you've got 1 game left. It's one of those where City have to get that FA Cup win at the weekend, because if not, then it's only the Premier League. But they thrive when they're on multiple competitions and playing well. They've got to use this where they've played well. Yes, they've lost, but they've played well and they can use that momentum in that way. But it's going to be a really difficult task against the Chelsea side, who've caused them a lot of problems.
They're finding form.
Absolutely.
Chelsea, it is. Like I say, this week is always difficult. It tends to be that they get through in Europe, make changes and lose in the FA Cup, unless they're playing someone like Sheffield United. But like I say, it's just a huge challenge now. Those players were exhausted. It's maybe recovery tomorrow, and then Friday you try and train and prepare for Chelsea, but I don't think they'll have much training in them. And then it's travel down to London. You know, it's an absolutely brutal schedule for 2 season-defining games. And like you say, it does feel like they need to go and win that semi. And you know, I just don't. I think Chelsea might be favourites based on the form Chelsea is showing, the fact they have caused them problems in both games this season, and just the tiredness effect is going to be huge on this City team. And you've also got the issue. I mean, you look at Liverpool and Arsenal recently. Also, Arsenal have gone out tonight as well. They've both had a bad result, and it's had a knock-on effect in their other competitions. You know, Liverpool lost to United in the FA Cup, started to stumble a bit, lost to Atalanta in Europe, and then lost the next league game. Arsenal lost the league game at the weekend and have lost in Munich tonight. and should probably have lost by more from what I read on Twitter. Obviously, we've not seen the game, but it sounds like that they were very much second best in Munich. So those two are much more inexperienced teams than City, but they have had a bad result, and it's had a knock-on effect in other competitions. And you've got the risk of that with City at the weekend. But if they were to lose that game, I mean, it puts so much pressure on the league fixtures, and it also just, it changes the narrative, it changes the feel of a season, and it is, it's felt like, I put my piece, it's felt like for 3 days they've dared to dream the impossible dream. I mean, a double-treble sounds impossible, and turned out it was impossible, but because of what happened on Sunday, that became the narrative at Tuesday's press conference, and rightly so. And Bernardo certainly fueled it with his talk of it being a legacy. And like you say, Pep tried to calm it down. He hates talks of doubles and trebles and quadruples and sextuples and septuples, as he always goes on about, and he was always going to dislike it. But he did say he can't stop the players from dreaming, and you can see what it meant to Bernardo. The players were gutted tonight, and it's a shame for City in a way that it's kind of been bubbling under the surface because they've not been in control of their destiny in the league. Suddenly they are, and then 3 days later it's kind of over. It's not, this idea of history, this idea of the unthinkable, the double treble, hasn't really had a chance to breathe because it only kind of came alive on Sunday night and now on Wednesday night, and it's dead. But there's still lots to play for this year. A fourth successive league title would be phenomenal. The FA Cup is still there. That's a domestic double. And like I say, I still think they can hold their heads high tonight. They were the better team. Like you're right to say that Real defended very well, and not many of those City chances were brilliant chances. Haaland went off, he hit the bar, but he didn't do a lot apart from that. I thought the tactic of, there were so many crosses tonight, and they'd obviously spotted a weakness there. I just don't think it worked. Haaland hasn't scored a header since October the 29th, and just didn't feel like it worked. But I still think they hold their head high. I still think it was. It's disappointing at the time, but I still think it was a great Etihad night. And stadiums like this, for clubs like this, they have to live these nights. And as good as last season was, it's not real in a way. That isn't what Champions League or European Cup knockout football is like. It's amazing to experience it, but really, as football fans here tonight, what is real is living on the edge for 90 or 120 minutes of a knockout game that is the very definition of knife edge, and that felt like it was. And like I say, the atmosphere was excellent. There was a couple of times Pep called for more, but I don't think he can be disappointed with the fans tonight. When they went 1-0 down, the backing was absolutely constant. So I think it was. I still think it was a big night in the history of the stadium, and the kind of night, like I say, they've not had since Tottenham. And it's bigger and better than Tottenham because, with all due respect to Tottenham, that's Tottenham, and City was still kind of learning the ropes in Europe. Tonight they've gone toe-to-toe with Real again. They've been the better team again, and it's been a proper heavyweight European clash. This is. I wrote the other day that this rivalry has taken over Real versus Bayern as the big European rivalry, and now obviously it's Real, Bayern and semis making me look stupid, but it does feel that way, and it still felt like a monumental night and an epic heavyweight night.
Well, we can see on our screens here that Guardiola is talking to the press now, and he doesn't look too disappointed. I don't think, as we've said, they don't think they should be. They've gone out in far worse fashions in the Champions League, and this is one where genuinely two penalty kicks, or one penalty kick even, separated two of the best teams in the world. So we will bring you all the reaction from Guardiola in his press conference, and throughout the week we'll be back for a more extended version of Talking City on Friday with myself and Simon Bajkowski, who's down quizzing Pep as we speak. And you can see by the reaction of the Real Madrid camp that this was a big one for them. So we will stick around on the Manchester Evening News throughout the evening, and tomorrow and then Friday we'll look ahead to that Chelsea game and see if City can take the disappointment and use it against Chelsea in the FA Cup, because that is going to be an almighty effort after going all the way against Real Madrid. Thanks for joining us.